Hey everyone, it's me, coming on strong. It's a lovely 42 degrees here in Toronto, aka 112 Fahrenheit for my American viewers out there. I figured I was like, I'll come out. It's too cold in my apartment. It's like super chilly, and then it's super hot out here. So I was like, whatevs, I'll make a video. I'm drinking a nice Summersby cider. I don't usually drink, but tonight called for it because it's so freaking hot. And it felt right, you know. If you've clicked on this video, I'm coming to talk about something important, and I think maybe some of you can see mine right here. It's about the third eye. Because I've had a lot of my subscribers ask me about this. I've had friends and family ask me about this. So I think it's about time, because I truly feel like we're at a stage where this is a part of the experience of the awakening that's happening for a lot of us. And as someone who had my eye on before, I'm starting to see a lot of the symptoms take place, and I'm starting to see some of the I'm starting to see a lot of the symptoms, and I'm starting to see the things that happened to me in my past happen now. And I want to talk about this because a lot of persons may believe or think that the eye is something that is maybe fun to have come on, and I'm not saying that it's not. But at the same time, I kind of want to pre-warn people, because I wish someone had done this for me when I came on the last time. Now, if you do feel that you are someone who's starting to get these symptoms, please don't fret. Please don't get worried. This is all part of the process. You actually, as a soul, chose this. So I hope that what I'm about to share is my past experience, and that is now happening again in this experience at this time frame of life. So because I'm recognizing it for the second time, I'm like, maybe I want to speak to this today. So the third eye has a couple precursors, or what I would like to say, a lengthy time before it actually kicks on to its full flagrante experience. And some persons, like I saw a couple TikToks, like there was some psychics and mediums that were like, oh, the third eye is not a big deal, you're not going to see much, you're just going to see like clouds looking a certain way, and you're going to sense spirit in all different forms. And I'm not trying to knock these people, but I'm also trying to really give you the meat and potatoes of what may be happening, because there's different variances, especially depending on what your soul chose to do with this gift once it does kick on. Some of us might have way more intense third eyes, but from the third eye I used to have, I have to speak to this to those that may have the same type of third eye experience happening for them now. So a couple things that you may notice is, one, pressure in the third eye. As you can see, mine's actually like popping out of its skull. I would say in this last month, like the Schumann resonance, the solar flares have been out of hand. And what that has done, at least for me, I have been lethargic, like I can't even describe. I haven't been motivated, and it's like my sleep patterns are all over the place. I can't keep, night and day and night. Can't go to bed before 3. Then there's nights I go and pass out at 9. I'm all over the place with my sleep patterns, and that's not normal. So if you're someone who's experiencing this lethargicness, it's because they're around, like the powers that be and the solar flares and all of this is changing our makeup. Like basically, like we do have what we would call dormant DNA going on. That's alivening. That's what allows our gifts to come on board. The whole process of the ascension is to really turn back into who we are, or recognize or remember who we truly are. And I have to preface this by saying, because I've had certain ones of my chakras aliven, and I've been waiting on the third eye, but as the parade is coming into play, I have to remember and revise this in my mind as to what takes place. So aside from the pressure, you're going to be noticing a couple other things. Like, I'm going to speak to what was happening to me before that's happening to me again now. And I know that it's like, because I'm seeing them at 2 different times in my life, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what's taking place. So the first thing I want to recognize is that if you are a meat eater, okay, because the third eye is attached to sentience, okay, you may notice that you are getting more repelled. If you're already on a plant-based diet, this may not apply to you, but if you are someone who eats meat, this will probably apply. My first time coming on, when I was, the first time I came on, I was 16 years old. When my eye fully came on, I was in the precursor parade, or what I would call like the testing, or the, I guess, trials and training for my eye. I would say about a year and a half before 16. So what I noticed is that at that time I was dating a vegetarian, so this part of it was not that difficult for me, but it's happening to me now again, now that I am a meat eater in my older age. You may notice that as your eye comes on, because you're more this is a more sentient chakra, you start to have more of an acclimation to, or you're repelled more by meat. And this is a normal progression of the third eye activation, simply because you start to like kind of get turned off. And that's happening for me. It's with chicken, with meat, beef. I don't really eat beef. I eat pork, but I notice that every time I'm picking up meat, I'm starting to get that death smell in my nose. And it's like I get a whiff of it and I'm like, okay, I got to put this down. And the thing is that I know that was something that I went through the last time, because even though I was with a vegetarian, I think that was by design back then, because I was going to naturally progress. Your life path always, affords you certain things at certain times. But let's say if you are a meat eater right now, you might notice that you're being more repelled away from meat. And it's because if you clean out that portion of, let's say, because like I said, it's sentient, having dead meat or blood within your actual body or in material form is not exemplary for what you're trying to achieve with the third eye. So because you have that sentient connection now to other animals, more so, you're going to notice that you're being pushed away from meat. So that's one kind of notification that might be happening for you. So I wanted to point it out. Another thing I wanted to say was that you may have a lot of phenomena that's taking place for you. And the reason why I'm saying this is because in this last 2 months, this whole lethargic time frame that I've had, I've noticed that there's been a lot of different phenomena that's been happening. And when I say the phenomena, I mean weird things that you can't calculate or justify to yourself, or just doesn't make sense. Okay. So I'll give you one example of what happened to me a couple nights ago, and then I'll kick it back to when I was younger, and then you could see like what I mean by this. So a couple nights ago, I was lying in bed. I have a window that's right beside where my son sleeps, and there was this cool breeze coming in, and to get to that window, I have to move my son's bed and then get on a step and then like actually wind the window up and close it. So I was actually noticing that I was like, oh, tomorrow it's going to get a lot hotter. I need to close that window. Okay, so I'm passing out. I have that as my last thought for the night. I wake up the next morning and I notice, as I look straight at my son while he's waking up, whatever, the window's closed. No one else lives with me, and I can't justify how that happened, right? And I was like, oh, okay. That in my older self probably would have freaked me out, but because, like I said, I went through this already, I'm not so freaked out. I've had a couple other weird phenomena happen, like knocking. I've been catching the same thing with my name being called, like Ashley, as I'm going to sleep. So when I was younger, what I would say is that a lot of this was happening. And if you're somebody who's getting your eye on for the first time, this phenomenon will start to happen. And the reason why it's happening, I have to make you guys understand, is that it's kind of like a precursor, a training, so that you're not as jumpy for when your eye does come on. Because if these weird paranormal phenomena start happening to you, it's kind of to gauge where you are in your freak meter. Like, does this freak you out? And if you're not that freaked out, I feel like as a higher self challenges you with these freakouts, this will progress you a little further and faster. So because my last go at this when I was younger, like I said, I had many of these phenomena happen. For example, I had a set of footprints in the snow that led up to my house. When I was younger, and both my mom and I at the time, I had the most rickety fence. I used to jump it all the time because I was one of those teenagers that used to make a run for it at night. You could not get on that fence and jump down gracefully and plant 2 feet and then make it was like 2 feet, then 2 feet, then 2 feet, all the way to the front, to the back door over here. And I remember my mother, commenting and saying, like, who tried to break into our house? And I'm like, Mom, like, don't you realize, like, there's no way that somebody could jump that and do it this gracefully and then just what did they backflip like a Olympian gymnast, because there's no feet leading away from it. It was like as if like somebody walked up to the door and then just disappeared. They're not in our house, so therefore it's unexplainable. So that was one. Another one that happened is I was in Mexico with my mom when I was 15, and I remember I used to drink and go out and party and stuff, and I remember saying, because she was accusing me of, she wouldn't let me take the camera. She's like, you're going to go get drunk. You're going to go get this. And I was so angry because back in the day, you didn't have smartphones. And I remember taking the camera was a big deal because it was like a proper camera. And I remember thinking in my mind, I said, I just wish she would know what it feels like to lose something, and not, be responsible for it. And The next day, she was like, I lost my wallet. I can't find it. And you have to understand that I was like, in my mind, I was like, no way, she lost something. I'm like, that's exactly what I was hoping for yesterday. And then what happened is that we found out that we had a safe, and the only way you could lock the safe was from the outside. And we couldn't find the keys for the safe, couldn't find her wallet, couldn't find anything. And we ended up having to call the security to get them to bust open the safe. And when we bust open the safe, guess what we found? The keys to lock the safe and her wallet inside the safe. Next to impossible. Unless you had another exact key for that safe and you used it, a secondary key, to lock everything in the safe and the keys included, you couldn't. So my mom saw those two freaky things happen with me. Another thing that happened that was quite remarkable and like the type of phenomena I'm talking about, I had finished reading a book that alivened me to the idea of a higher self, and ended the book right as this: I hope everything is crystal clear. That was the last line in the book. And the next day, I happened to have a bouquet of flowers show up to my house. Mind you, I'm like 14, 15 years old. And the bouquet, the note read, I hope this is crystal clear. So my father at the time was like, who's sending you flowers? Why are they sending you flowers? And I was like, I don't know who it is, Daddy, I swear to God. So my dad had to go and call the company, and the company was like, oh, the person didn't use a credit card. There's no number on file. There's no name. It was anonymous. And they must have used cash because there's no trail. And the minute I embraced the flowers and I smelt it, and I overheard my dad fuming on the phone, I smelt them and I was like, oh, these are beautiful. And all the crystal in my mother's crystal cabinet started going like, you know, when you lit crystal, and it was like, ee! And it all raised up in vibration so that I could understand what it meant to rise in vibration to the higher dimensional thinking. So I'm giving you all these scenarios to show you how there's no plausible way that any of these things could have happened, right? And that is the type of phenomena I'm talking about, because when your eye is coming on, and like I said, it's sentient, you start to have to get used to these freaky deaky weird things that happen to you and be more okay with them, because when your eye comes on, it's going to be a whole world of things that you can't understand. And the reason why I think we have to go through this trial or this training and to kind of settle in your mind that this phenomenon exists, that this is real, because it's like if you keep contemplating it and freaking yourself out about it, you may not be ready for the eye to come on. So I think it's kind of like a checklist to see where you're at. So that's another example. Another end, and like I said, with that window thing, that was one with me hearing my name, Ashley, you know, in the middle of the night. I didn't freak out because I remembered what my training was like the last time. So I was like, oh, okay, things are starting to change. The next thing you might experience is what I would like to call walk-ins. So walk-ins are persons, usually strangers. Your family can inhabit them and so can your friends, but the ones that really stick out to you are the strangers. And what happens is that these strangers will approach you for no reason at all, and they'll know your name and they'll tell you some prophetic message, okay? And during my training, before my eye actually came on, I must have met like 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't even know how many walk-ins. What a walk-in is like it's a higher entity, could be angelic, could be a master, could be someone of that nature that walks in, steps in, says a message to you, and then the person who the entity is inhabiting leaves them, and then they have no clue what they just said to you, and they don't even remember talking to you. So if you're experiencing some weird phenomena like that, that's another clue in that your eye might be coming on, because what's happening again is just to gauge your weirdo meter. How weird do you take it? Can you handle it? Do you take the message in? Do you try to block the message? Do you listen to what the message is professing to you? Do you follow it? Do you go with your intuition on it? Those are kind of like little tests that might be happening for you just to gauge what type of level you're at. Like I'll give you an example of one that happened for me that was quite distinct, and it'll give you an idea of what I mean. So when I was about 15, 16, I think, as I was leading to the eye coming on fully, I had a good friend named Chris. Him and I and his best friend Alan went to a restaurant. And what happened was that his friend had just been broken up with. He got dumped. And Chris was like, oh my God, we're going to have to listen to this guy all night. This sucks, you know? And I was like, ah, whatever. It is what it is. Alan gets up and he's like, I got to go to the bathroom. And all of a sudden he comes back and he has this like golden luminance about his face. He's like all holier than thou face. That's how they kind of look most of the time. And he comes up to me, sits down at the table again. Chris is looking at him all weird, like, what's going on? And he goes, Ashley, he's like, I'm 111. I am the messenger. All will be well at this time. And it was something to that effect. And he stood up, proceeded to go back to the bathroom. Comes back maybe like 2 or 3 minutes later, all back to normal. And Chris was like totally befuddled, had no clue what he had just experienced. He had seen some weird things around me, but this was like the most intense because this was his boy doing this, and I had no real affiliation with Alan. So when Alan came back, Chris was like, bro, do you not remember you coming here and saying this shit to her? Was that a joke? Like, did you want to? And he had thought that me and Alan had planned this, and we did not. And I already knew what it was. It was a walk-in, and it was a messenger. And Alan was like, what the hell are you talking about? I was never up here. I just went to the bathroom and came back. What are you talking about, bro? And like Chris was like, nah, man. He's like, you came to this table, you sat here, told her some spiel about being a messenger. And then Alan was like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And he kind of dropped it. I got my message. I knew what was up. But these were the types of things that were happening to me before my procession to the eye. So if you're somebody who has been visited by these messengers or walk-ins, that might be another notice to you about more weird phenomena that you might be leading up to your eyes opening. The reason why I'm bringing this all up is because everybody has a different path, a different way that this happens. Now, what I suggest is that you walk through this training and you take total awareness as to what's happening. If you're hearing my voice right now and you're going through some of these challenges and you're like, what the fuck is happening to me? I hope that this helps because this is part of it. Now, there are those out there that do these high-end meditations to kind of force it open, or they do the CIA tapes to force it open. I don't truly recommend that. And unless your higher is really kind of motioning you to do those tapes or to do these forms of meditation, I truly don't think it's the best thing for us, because it's like the progression in the parade leading to your eye opening is kind of, like I said, a training. So it's like it's kind of helping you understand and like tempering your fear factor and tempering your awareness and tempering like what you can ingest, so to speak. And another thing I want to mention too is that if you are someone who is trying to get your eye on, another thing that is very important is a detoxification. If you don't know what that means, it is good to get rid of heavy metals, but ultimately the very primary one that all of us should be doing is to get rid of the aluminum in our deodorant and the fluoride in our toothpaste. Reason being is because the aluminum and the fluoride actually creates a calcification barrier between your pineal gland and your reptilian. So like, let's say this is your pineal inside of your cauliflower of a brain, right? And there's like this tail. Obviously my wrist is a lot bigger, but what happens is right here at the cutoff point between the tail of the reptilian and the pineal, there's a calcification that occurs right there, like a buildup. So if you are someone who's like, oh, I do want to get this on, and if you wanted to speed it up or help it along, I totally suggest that you do some form of detox, and that is included by using non-aluminum and non-fluoridic toothpaste. Next, what may be happening for you? Okay. So we've talked about the weird phenomenon. That is one of the things that takes place. But then it kicks up a notch. You know what I mean? What you may begin to see are things like shadows coming out of your peripheries. Shadows coming out of your peripheries. You look back, you don't catch it. You look back, you don't catch it. This goes on for some time, because the whole goal is that you start to catch these entities. Now, you can think and imagine that some of them are not great, but some of them are. And the only reason you're seeing them in the gray scale is because your eye hasn't fully been tuned yet and it hasn't come on fully. But the reason why you're seeing the peripheries is because your eye is starting to protrude forth, right? And what happens is that you'll start to notice these, like, you know, you're catching them. And then eventually you see the full shadow figure. But as your eye is prepared to come on, they're not truly gray. The only reason you're seeing the gray scale is because your eye is not tuned. Like if you were to think of it like, I don't know if you guys remember old TVs, there was like those color and saturation. It's like your screen could be black and white and gray at times, but if you like tune them, they could come into color or phase into color. So what's happening is that it's like you're training your eye, like this eye, but you're training your awareness. And again, it's like, how freaked out do you get by these things? Do you have curiosity to find them? Do you have curiosity to see them? That gets measured also by your higher self, because your higher self will be like, uh-oh, they're crying in a corner. Maybe this isn't the time. Or maybe, oh, they're looking for the being and they're, you know, they're curious and they want to know more, see more. Your higher self gauges this as you go through this process. So that's another thing that comes to play when your eye is in the procession of coming on. Also, after that point or during that point, what may be happening is you might start to have some out of body experiences. And I don't mean the ones that you have, or like, let's say through meditative states. What I would say happens more so, or when you're like slipping into dream time, that is more of an ideal point. Like when you're about to slip into alpha state, that's the state that you go in when you go into REM sleep, when you're dreaming. But what I'm saying is there's this like little point right before you're about to fall asleep and you start to, catch on to the fact that you're wafting away into the dream. But if you become aware of that checkpoint and you want to, aliven your eye, you want to actually do more training with your eye, what you could try to work through is what I call the wormhole effect. So what happens, and this will be different. Some people see it as a hallway. Some people see it as like, hallway or like a tunnel. I saw it as a wormhole. So that's why I use the word wormhole. But what will happen is when you're about to go into that alpha state, you'll start to see either like right where you're in the middle of, when your eyes are closed, you'll start to either see a circle, right? Or you'll start to see a pinprick of light. And it's kind of like your inside start to walk towards that pinprick or that light illuminance when your eyes are closed. And what happens is that as you start to inch forward towards it, like even from a soul stance, it's like mentally walk towards it. It's like you're not really in your darkness of, it's really just dark and like a pinprick, but it's like you're bringing your soul towards it in a sense. And what takes place is that as you do that, you'll notice that your body starts to raise. It starts to quicken and quicken and quicken. It can be a very terrifying feeling, but at the same time, if you are curious, you can actually go through this wormhole. And I'm telling you, when you first do this, it is not easy. It is scary. If any of you, what I would say if resembles is like, I don't know if any of you have been put into stasis. Like for myself, like even before this whole procession with my eye, between the ages of, let's say, like 6 to 11 or so, many a night I was held in stasis as a child. And I mean, now that I'm older, I totally understand why that was, but at the time it was hella terrifying. And if you're someone who has been in stasis, what you'll notice is that when you did wake up in stasis, sometimes you would see the shadow beings, sometimes you'd see Hat Man. It just depended on, or, usually for myself, it was Hat Man. And then I would also be waking up from a night terror. And what happened, and this was when I was younger, right? But I got better and better even at the younger age, because what happens is that it is a being, okay? I'm just giving you a heads up. That's holding you with like a mind melt, okay? In stasis. And you guys don't have to believe me, but go look this up. This phenomenon is real. This happens to like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world. And now because of internet, we're all talking about it. But this used to happen when I was a child. And what I would say is I got stronger and stronger in my belief in Yeshua and Jesus, and I learned how to do certain tactics and certain things. I learned how to propel and break the mind meld when I was a child. But what I will say is that quickening or that feeling that you get when you're about to go through the wormhole is equally almost as terrifying, because it's like as if your soul is actually raising out, and it's like you're leaving your body behind, and you're cognitive of it. It's not happening once you've gone into the dream state. You caught it right before you went into the dream state, so you're still in the conscious level. So what happens is like you physically go through the wormhole of your eye, or the tunnel, or the pinprick, whatever way you want to say it, and you start to come out of your body. That's another thing that will happen, or you'll start to play around with before your eye fully turns on. And again, you would be somewhere in the 3D. You could play around in the 3D also, but I'm saying to get out through the wormhole takes time. You've got to do this numerous times. It took me maybe like 25 to 40 tries to actually, build the cojones to like get through that wormhole, because the raising itself out is quite terrifying. But once I did it once, I realized, oh, I get it. It's like you feel like you're going to die, but then you get past that death point and you're not dead. But that's kind of like what it feels like. I don't know if that's the same for everybody, but it was what it was for me. And what happens is that as you continue to do that, you continue to play with it. At the beginning, you're not really in control. Like, yes, you can stay in the 3D, but you don't really have control of where your higher self is shooting you. Like, so most of the time, like, you could go off planet, or you could go, let's say, interstellar, or to a different country, or you could remote view or something to that effect. But what actually takes place is like your higher self is actually in command of like where you're going. And you're so whirlwinded because you're like, wow, I'm here, I'm seeing this, where am I, what's going on? Sometimes they can bring you to time and space. Sometimes you can go to a continuum. Sometimes you could be taken all over the place, okay, when you come out of body. And the thing is that you're not in control. Like, you as the vessel, like you as the soul are not the one who's, jet setting. It's so fast. It's like with the, train of thought, and then you're there. But the thing is, as you are not really aware, or you don't have the muscle memory yet, you're being taken different places, and you're just like in a whirlwind of trying to figure out what's going on. So again, this procession takes some time. This could take you years. Some of you get better at it because you constantly try to do it every night. Just depends on the person. Some people may not even get past that point because it's too hella scary. You know what I'm saying? And that might be where it ends for you there. But if you are someone who is challenging this, that is another point of what happens when your eye is about to, like, technically your eye is on when that part is happening. But what I'm saying is to have it on all day, every day, not when you're challenging it. That's what I mean. It's like once you get to that sping moment when it actually comes on and you see everything in the daytime, you see it in the nighttime, you see it all the time, that out of body training does occur. So that's something else I wanted to point out, because that was another progression within my training that I needed. And these are the things that kind of help you gauge your capabilities. So that's why I still say, and I'm against forcing it through, because this slow, beautiful progression kind of, holds you by the hand and coddles you in a sense and takes you one step at a time. Some of you might be like fearless Bettys out there that are like, I can do it all in a day. But most of us, because especially, you have to understand, I know that this is happening for me again, but I'm also like 20 years older. And a lot of you this might be your first time, and you could be in your 30s, you could be in your 40s, 60s, 50s, who knows? Or you could be younger and had your eye on all the time. Or you could be in your teens and this is happening to you like it did for me back then. And the thing is like, it kind of reminds me of the Matrix, when they said, oh, he's too old, he's going to pop. He just can't take that, this reality is kind of like fighting against the spiritual realm that you're about to inhabit and understand and grow to see. So if you're somebody who's really in this state, by all means, ask me questions. I did it. I was 16 when my eye came on, and I turned it off when I was 22. And, that was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, because once you see something, you can't unsee it. And at the same time, it was a part of who I was. And that's what I mean about these genealogical markers that are alivening in our genome. Because our DNA holds so many keys and gifts within them because of our lineage, where we come from, not just as a human soul, but as an astral soul. So you don't know what kind of gifts you've been endowed by your, let's say, aspect families or your higher self aspects. And I go into that in my higher self healing. Maybe I wasn't supposed to talk about that. But anyways, higher self healing channel, I talk about the aspects and the different lineages that you may be holding within one soul. Okay, because you have to understand, we make up a 12 strand, which is interesting because there are beings out there that have 24, there are beings out there that have less than 12, but I'm saying the genome and DNA holds so much. It's like its own universe within itself, and it's so complex. Humans can say that they understand it, but they don't. We're not at a stage of understanding it fully. We don't know why we are so close to apes, but there's still that percentage where we're different, and no one seems to know where that other 1.2 or 1.3% went, or what's where it comes from. They can't really point it out, but realistically, that's what's happening. It's and that's why I say the variance of what you can do with your eye is different. That's why I wasn't so rah to those psychics that were like, oh yeah, when your eye comes on, it's nothing major. But for some of us with different gift sets, it may be major. And that's the thing I'm trying to warn against, and not warn, I'm trying to prepare. Okay, because I myself I'm going through these trials just like I did before. The only thing is that I have some awareness, but at the same time, I know it's going to be just as terrifying as it was the first time, but I'm trying to mentally prepare myself. Now, why I kicked it off the last time was not because of how scary it was, okay? Because let's talk about this. What may you see once your eye comes on, okay? Let's talk about that. Things that you may be able to see once your eye comes on may be something like auric fields, okay? You might be able to see the light illuminance or the different colors associated with the aura. You might be able to see, for myself, when I was younger, I was able to see the auric fields, but then I was also able to see blotches. I was able to see dark shadows around persons. And this was something I couldn't see before. Okay. And what I would say those darker blotches were, let's say, lower entities or lower debased entities or energies that were kind of hindering and kind of sticking themselves onto the energetic field of a human being, because our auric field is quite large. But what would happen, I saw them as blotches, like kind of like hazy tar patches on people's energy, like their auric fields. And what I would say is that most of the time who seemed to have these were people that were, let's say, mentally distressed, or those that were, let's say, heavily into drugs or into drinking. A lot of wayward homeless people, or those with like mental illness, they tended to have those. And I still believe till this day, because of everything I saw, that a lot of persons with mental illness, it's because they're somewhat bogged down by these energies that are kind of like siphoning off of their soul spark. But that might be something you see. Another thing you might see, I don't want to scare you, because not everyone will see this, but some of us may and some of us may not. There's a lot of great things you'll see, but there could be a lot of different things you see. So I'm just trying to give you guys a heads up, okay? Like, for example, for myself, I think I was someone who was what we would call a night rider. I don't know, because I started to see a lot of the darker side of things. And there was a purpose, because my specific gifts were designed to do something specific. You might be somebody and not have to deal with that at all. But what you might notice is that, let's say, for example, you meet somebody, when you have your eye on, that you'll see their regular face. They could turn like this and then turn back. And then their face like totally like jacks up, okay? And what I would say to that is that there are these beings out there that do possess a soul, but they're kind of kicking it with Mr. Damon, you know what I'm saying? So they've like debased their souls so horrifically that they live somewhat in a more negative let's say resonance constantly, and their true face comes through, and that might freak you out. It does happen, and you can even ask your higher self to say like, hey, I can't deal with that, please don't show me that. Or if you do, show it to me in a different way. Just simply ask. You'll most likely, if when your eye does come on, you're going to also have a guide. I lost my guide from the last time I was on, because I was told that I would lose them, and I loved my guide, but it was part of what losing it was like, and I don't suggest this. So if you're somebody who's really has their eye on and you're really freaked out, all you really have to do is ask your guide or your higher self to slow down the process. Like, don't freak you out, because like I said, getting rid of it or shutting it down is not, it's really hard to come back from, because I know for myself, I went to really, really bad places in my soul, and in my way of being, because like I said, once you see the other side and then you go back to like a menial normal life, you're kind of like, I saw, Oz, and now I don't see Oz, and it's like your heart and your soul just like, I waned, and I truly missed everything that I was a part of back then. So I kind of, in hindsight, as an older person, wish I hadn't truly kicked it off. I wish I had just asked for more help with it. But that's a note to you if you are someone who just got it kicked on, because you can always ask to be braced with the information and what you're seeing, etc. Another thing you might notice is that, and not that we really need it right now, because you might see ships right here, ships up there, but at this present moment in time, it's funny, because when I was younger at 16, I started seeing these things and I was like, oh my god, they're everywhere. Not everywhere, but like I was actually seeing them, and like no one around me could, and some of them would be right here in this space and time, some of them would be higher up, but majority were like right here. And what's interesting is now in this day and age, they're everywhere. Like you go to Miami, you go to California, New Mexico, Manitoba, here, they're everywhere. So, and you have to understand too, is like they're usually just cloaked. That's the only reason why you can't see them, or with your regular eyes. But when you have this eye on, you can see past the cloaking, so it's like you could see everything that's taking place. So that's another thing you may be seeing if you got your eye on, or you're about to get your eye on. You might be privy, and usually the ones you do first see are the ones that are again attached to your homies or your family ties or your like genealogical aspectual ties, meaning like if you're, let's say, Pleiadian by nature, and again, Pleiadian is so vast, but let's just say for shits and giggles, it's Pleiadian. You might see the Pleiadian ships first, or you might see the Arcturian ships first, or you might see the Carian ships first, or you might see Syrian ships first. It just depends on like what you're strong as, or Lyrians, etc. Angelics, like for myself it was angelic ships, but I'm just trying to say like it's all dependent on your background, okay? So that's another thing you might notice too. Another thing I have to make you guys aware of is that you might be out in the day-to-day or even watching television, and you might notice that some people don't look the same anymore. And I don't mean that crazy face demonic thing. I mean that there are, let's say, intergalactic beings that walk among us, and some of them are not human looking enough that they have to use what I would call like a holographic interface. And I remember when my eye was first on, this took a while because, like I said, 16 to 22, I had it for several years. I started seeing persons that, like, I would see the human form, like the holographic form, but then behind them I would see like the outline of a larger body or a different shaped body or a different styled body. And then as time went on, I realized like I could make out more features, etc. But I'm being presented this human form in front of me. And it was really weird. And that might be something else that you've noticed, because a lot of beings are here surveying. A lot of beings are here to understand us better. And they can't go roaming around looking the way they do. So they, especially when it comes to, let's say, reptilians, you know, they do that quite often. So you could be watching television, or you could see them in the modern day. And you'll notice that there's that holographic version, and then there's the other version that you see. So that might be something else that you're privy to once your eye is on. And again, gauging, always about the gauging, because I'm telling you, the first time I seen that, it freaked me the fuck out. But it becomes more adaptable and understandable as time goes on. Okay. A couple other things you might be able to see at that point. Let's say ghosts. And you'll be able to see those that are entrapped in this dimension, in this realm. That's a very common thing. It could be in houses, it could be in buildings, it could be wherever, libraries. You might see. And the thing you got to understand about ghosts is that all it is a soul that at the time of death didn't decide to go towards the light. It might have been because of trauma or pain or how they died. It could have been tragic, whatever the case may be, and they just didn't want to let go. And what happens is they get stuck in this realm. And the thing is that they're seeing their version of time. They're seeing their world, basically. And they're on a loop, usually, like a Groundhog Day loop, like a dream. They don't know they're dead. They don't know. They just keep reliving the same loop of energy over and over and over again. That's why if you have your eye on and you watch ghosts, they tend to do the same thing over and over and over again. And I would say it's the younger ghosts, let's just say, that are the ones that actually move things. Like they're freshly dead, because I noticed that ghosts that have been here for some time, they tend to lose all of their memory, or they're still embodying some like lower ended energy, meaning like anger or revenge. And then it's like, that's where you get the poltergeisty stuff happening in houses, because every new family that comes is like a resemblance of their trauma and their tragedy that they went through when they were passing. So it's not to say that they're actually haunting their family, they're actually just reliving the trauma. So if you are someone who does get your eye on and you do happen to see the ghost, just walk up to them. You know, it will take some time. It took me maybe like 4 or 5 times to like get used to this, but then you just ask them, tell them that they've passed on. They will recognize you actually, because you can see them and you can stare at them in the eyes, and it'll be quite refreshing. They'll think you're a ghost, but that's okay. And you just tell them to go to the light. So that's another thing. Also, if you have certain skill sets, you might be able to see departed loved ones who have made it to heaven as well. And that's very interesting, because that was one of my skill sets. I was able to see those that departed as real as you and I. Sometimes I would see it. Usually they tended to be like 30 years old or so. They get to pick whatever age they want. And you might have to relay messages for them to those that you're meeting. Because the thing is like you'll be, I remember because I was so young, I'd be at like clubs and shit. And then I would see like someone's grandfather like boogieing like right beside them. And I'm like, oh crap, like I gotta go tell this girl. Like, you know how many people I left in tears? It was not cool. And then I was hiding it from all my friends, because none of my friends knew I could do this. You know, and then I would like tell the girl or the guy the message, and then they would leave the club like bawling their eye, hugging me, bawling their eyes out. And my friends would be like, what did you say to them? I'm like, oh, nothing. Like I always had to make up some shit. But yeah, that might be something else that your gift's alive into. So that's something really cool, and that might be what you're supposed to do with it. So like I said, for some of us, we're night riders too, and I'll explain what that is. So like I said, not everybody has to see the negative things, but they do happen. And like for example, for myself, I used to see them a lot. And what would happen is that as time went on, I started actually downloading a language. It was not Latin. It was, I would say, a darker, a higher, darker language that these beings, you know, I don't even know how to really say it, because truthfully, I don't even know how it works in its totality. But all I know is I would download this language, I would say it, and I'd expel them. Basically, it wasn't expel them. It was like I was able to keep them in like, let's say, for example, if I saw someone on the subway, right, and I saw this, like, what seemingly looked to the rest of the world some crazy guy who was like yelling and screaming, and I could see the blotches, I could see who was holding them and like driving them crazy, so to speak. And when I would start to speak this language, it was like as if the person themselves would be like held, and then we would do this stare off, and then it was like I would be capturing the person's real authentic soul in like a hold, so that the person would stay put, like the real soul, and then the other energies around it would start to get flustered, and I would just keep speaking and speaking and speaking, and it would either force the person to leave, like the entities would force the body to get out of the way of me. But if I was close enough and we were in close quarters, I made as time got on, I got a little bit better at this, but then, as I said, I kicked it off, but I was able to expel them off and out of persons. So I know that was another part of my capabilities. It's one I didn't like, because it was kind of like a showdown, and I would say that the language that I was being downloaded was something that just came through me. I didn't truly understand, but now that I have my ears on to hear and all that, I'm starting to understand like what the language is, who gave me the language, why it works on those lower entities, etc. And I think, should this come back on, that might be something I'm interested in doing once again, because even though it's hella scary, it's hella helpful. And a lot of persons out there deserve the chance to reacclimate and get that purified soul again without all the disturbances and the craziness. So that's something I'm very interested in. But some of you may have to do something like this. I guess what you could say is like there's priests out there, right? And then there's exorcists, right? So not every priest is an exorcist, but some exorcists are priests, but not every priest is an exorcist, put it that way. And that's the same for those with their eye. Not everyone's going to have to do this type of work. Not everyone's going to have to see the other side. Some of you might just work strictly with galactic. Some of you might just strictly work with the dead, meaning like you might even be a reaper. You might be someone who has to guide people at their last parts of death. You might be able to see their loved ones come in, etc., and then you help them in their last moments. There's so many different variances as to what the eye can provide and perform. You could be doing work, like I said, for the galactics. It just depends on the caliber, the capability, and also at the same time, you might not even do anything to that degree. You might be a multi-dimensional worker. So meaning like, because like I said, you can naturally come out, you could be doing things along the grid, galaxy, etc. So it just depends. Or you might be jumping on ship and correlating with, again, the galactic. So it just depends on what the calibration your eye possesses, what your endowed gifts are from your genealogical dispositions. But I had to come on and say this because I believe I'm going through that progression again, because the weird things are starting to happen again. I'm not really freaked out. I've been waiting for it. And the only reason I kicked it off last time in my life was because it was at a stage of my life where like there was no internet. I had no friends. I had no real way of explaining to anyone what was going on, and I was 16 years old and I was a teenager, and I would honestly say that I had one of the most profound ways that it actually came on. I'll briefly say the story, but I think it's meant to be shared, because then you guys get an understanding of how quick it comes on, meaning in full flagrante, full in living color, like it comes on very powerfully, and then it never kicks off. So I was 16 years old and I was in high school. I was with a really shady group of friends. Like I said, I was dating my first husband, which was a vegetarian. He was born a vegetarian, so I was getting used to for years not eating meat, because every time I practically hung out with him because my home life was garbage. And then what happened was a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine from high school, who was kind of similar to me in the sense where like he was on the honor roll, but he was a thug. He was on the honor roll, but he had been in jail. Like there was all these different sides to this guy, and his name was Sammy, God rest his soul. He tragically committed suicide, and I would honestly say that at that point in my life, because of everything I was going through, I hadn't even got my eye on yet, and I was still hella scared. I had no one to talk to, and I thought about unaliving myself a couple times, because you got to understand, teenagehood is quite tumultuous. I mean, we're all going through crazy hormones and all kinds of crazy shit, right? So I understood there was some simpatico between Sammy and I when he did this. I remember being at the funeral, and literally, because I was brought up Catholic, even though I'd seen all kinds of spiritual shit, I still, reverted back to the thinking like, oh, you commit suicide, you unalive yourself, like you go to hell, you know. But I remember thinking that and going, hey bro, like I hope you're okay. That's all I said to him when I was kneeling down at his casket. And I would say several nights after that occurrence, after the funeral, I was that night thinking it was hella hot, like a night like this. I didn't have air conditioning. Back then there was no central air really, and I just remember my computer, which was one of those like big block, you know, you had to, like, for those youngins out there that are watching this, computers used to be huge. Like you used to have this one box with this massive like modem, it was a modem, and then you have this massive screen. It was huge, it was a big clunker, and it used to have a fan inside of it. Okay, so I'm lying in bed, it's hot, I'm bothered, I'm just thinking about life, thinking about all the messed up shit that, you know, teenagers do. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, you know, just about Sammy. I was thinking about Sammy and like all the shit that went down at his funeral. It was fucking crazy because he had a long-term girlfriend, and then he had a mistress, and they were beefing and fighting at the funeral. It was a shit show. Let me just put it that way. And I just remember thinking about like, wow, like how many people he touched and all this stuff. And right when I was thinking that, like all of a sudden my computer fan just started whizzing away, like zzz, making this annoying sound, like so annoying. Like I was like lying there and I'm like, oh great. I'm like, how am I ever going to go to sleep with that sound going off? I'm like, I got to go shut off my computer. And all I remember was that I was lying in bed and I went to go get up to turn the computer off, and I couldn't. I just couldn't. Like my body was back in that stasis thing. And I was freaking out because I remembered as a child I had gone through this, and I was like, no, don't tell me these motherfuckers are back. Like I'm not dealing with this. So I started like going through my old rituals, like old names, old incantations, things I would say. And I was, you know, yelling out Yeshua's name. I felt so powerful and strong in it, and it wasn't working. And I was like, no. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I was just like, only thing that was moving was my eyeballs. I was like Felix, you know, Felix the cat. It was like my eyeballs were the only things that were moving. And I remember my door was open, and I had a hallway with like a big picture in the hallway, and all I remember from that picture and like the hallway was like this exuberant light. Like I mean, like I'm blinded by the light. Like it was so intense. I couldn't even, like, coming from that wall was like this light that engulfed everything. I don't even know how to put it. It was like when you see a Mack truck coming at you, like that's how bright the lights were. And all of a sudden, like all I could see from the brightness was like this door trap, like a trapped door to like a ship or to like a aircraft carrier or something like that, you know, like come down. And I'm freaking out. Like you gotta understand, like I'm seeing like a fucking like ship like load in my room. My room doesn't even exist anymore. The hallway doesn't exist. Nothing exists except for my bed, a little bit of my floor, and like the rest behind it was just light, like just light. Okay, so this trapdoor comes down, and all I see is a side profile of a guy, and I would recognize that guy anywhere because like. And I knew it was my friend Sammy, like right away, because the guy had a do-rag and a backwards hat and like a really baggy jersey. And really, like back in the day, like the hip hop style was to wear your like boxers, like, and your pants really low, and like Timbs. He had like big blocky, like, not that I could see they were Timberlands, but like we used to wear Timberlands, like these big bulky boots. So his whole style, his whole getup, like even though it was a silhouette, like I knew it was him. And as I was acknowledging that it was him, I started hearing like a radio go off in my head. It was like, like it was like all the channels of the radio were going off in my mind. And then all of a sudden I was like, hey Ash, like I could make out a male's voice, and for the life of me I couldn't really tell you what he said, but I know that he was trying to basically tell me that he was okay, that everything was okay, and I was like, I remember asking, is that a ship? Like I was just like, is that a ship? And I'm still freaking out. Like don't get me wrong, like even though I knew in my heart of hearts that was my boy, as he started coming down the carrier, like that latch door, it was like I was freaking out more and more and more because he was getting closer and closer, and it was like the floor he was walking on was maybe like 2 feet up from our regular floor. And I just remember him walking through my laundry basket, and that's where I lost it because I was like, like inside I couldn't move my lips, but inside of myself I'm like, I can't deal with this, I can't do it, I can't, get out. Like I was just freaking out. If I could have pissed myself, I would have pissed myself, put it that way. And he just kept, and then I think it was like by me screaming, he knew I couldn't handle it. The threshold of fear was just like too much, like I might have just passed out or something. But before it got to that point, all of a sudden it was like as if like that huge exuberant light just went, and it all just went right back to normal, and it all disappeared like a whisper, like a puff of smoke. It was gone, like so fast. And I remember getting the sensation in my nose and my lips and my fingers again, and like then being able to sit up, and then my computer fan stopped going like because the whole time it was so high pitched. It was like as if the ship or whatever was taking all the energy, all the electronics in my room too, including my own energy. Okay, because that's what's happening when you are in stasis with other lower ended beings. But I think the reason why it didn't work this time was because they were light beings doing this. So it was like me calling on Yeshua and all that. They were probably like, yo, we work with him, so that ain't gonna work. You slap high fives, you know, like. So I think that's why it wasn't working, because there wasn't anything really damaging to me. It was actually a good message. It was a good sentiment to let me know that my friend hadn't gone to hell, he double hockey sticks. And it was so, I don't even know what to say. Like, even looking back at it now, it is still, I mean, aside from my other speech about having my moment in time with God, that was second to none. You know what I mean? I mean, that one was way more profound, but the one with Sammy was equally as profound. And after that point in time, I started to see everything. It just never shut off. I thought it was going to be like a one-off, but it wasn't. So there might be something very catastrophic, like not catastrophic, but something really big that happens to you. Like, this is my sentiment, at least for those that I know that had their eye come on. That's why I mean it comes on like this. Like, yeah, you might go through the training for like a year and a half, but whatever the actual incident is that does finally get you on, I think it's a jolt. Like, like I said, like the Matrix with Neo, it's like something major has to like get you at that level to be like, holy fucking shitballs, this is insanely right here, right now, can't deny it, over the top in a situation. And when that situation hits you, your eye will be in full flagrante, full embodiment, full capability, fully out there. So if that hasn't hit you yet, just know, if it has hit you, maybe it's happening for you today, maybe it's happening for you in a week, month, whatever the case may be. When that epitome moment happens, just know there's no going back. I mean, you can shut it down like I did years ago. It is always freedom of choice. God will never give you something you cannot handle, or your higher self who's guiding you, etc., will never force you or push you too far. But it is not for the weak of heart. It is something that a lot of us are going to be acclimating to in this time. And the reason why I say this is because all of this is not by mistake. It is, it's all by design. And I don't think that a whole slew or millions of us coming on board in terms of our throat, our sacral, our solar plexus, our eye, all of this, our heart, it's all intertwined, and it's all coming on, similarly at the same time. We're all coming on at different times, but we're all at the same, waves, or different waves, but we're all here and now coming on. And I think it's because most of us don't know what is to come. Like, we don't know if it's going to be a solar flare. We don't know if it's going to be a third world war. We don't know if it's going to be an energy grid breakdown. We don't know if it's going to be Mother Earth just like churning over and starting over. We don't know, but we all feel like this major ending or beginning we're on the precipice of it. For my personal feeling, I think the major date in my mind is 2027. So I feel like since this is 2025, we have some years to work with these gifts, get better at them, really harness what they can do, because we can even get our hands on, and that could mean like you start healing of hands, or you could do telekinesis. I don't think it's a coincidence that all of us are becoming very telepathic. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of us are getting our throats on, meaning our ears, etc., channeling, etc. It's not a coincidence, remote viewing, whatever the case may be, because whatever is to come, these gifts, I think, are going to be needed. Because, like, think about it. Like, I've thought about it. You know what I mean? It's like, let's say, for example, all communication goes dead. Most of us don't know Morse code. Most of us don't know how to work a radio. You know what I'm saying? But if I need to, like, call on somebody from all the way across the world, all I need is their name and I can do it. But I'm just speaking for myself, right? And telepathically, I can connect with other channelers. You know what I'm saying? So it makes me think that, like, once we have our eye on, we can visually see where our brothers and sisters are. It helps us remote view. It helps us astral travel, maybe to find out where other beings are, etc. All of these gifts are going to be needed for whatever it is that is to come. And so that's why I'm saying it's like, I feel like it's not, it's in God's timing. God's plan is very melodic, and it's not like rush, 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 go, 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 rush, 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 go, go, go. But as we're seeing the way the world is going right now, and we have to take heed to what's happening. Like, I mean, right at this stage as I'm making this video, like the U.S. bombed Iran. We've had these upheavals all across the world, and not for nothing. Like, I mean, we can all think like, oh, the US is getting everyone involved. But really what I think is happening is the matrimony of antimony. And if you don't know what antimony is, look it up. Because I personally think the whole reason why this is happening is because of antimony. But I'll keep my personal perspective to myself, because all I ever do is follow the resources. Almost every war that has broken out in my lifetime has been over a resource. So, you know, if they were starting a war with the Congo, I'd say it was for cobalt. If they were starting a war with Saudi Arabia, I'd say it's for the oil. Or Venezuela, I'd say it's for the oil. If it was with Canada, I'd say it's for the steel, whatever the case may be. But because it's Iran, I'm going to say antimony. And because, you know, China's not really doing too well with US trades right now, might be a reason, but I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. But I'm saying, if, let's say, for example, all of this pops off that way, we don't know. We don't know the time, and we don't know the place. And that's how it always was relayed in Revelations, in the good book. You know what I'm saying? And it's not for nothing, like, I'm not a Bible thumper, but like I said, even when I was younger, I was told to always follow Revelations, kind of like a precursor to what's happening. So I personally feel like we all feel this in our souls, that we don't, it doesn't matter how it ends. We're all here. We're all going to be here for, and we don't know if it's like all of our brothers and sisters are going to pick us up. We don't know what timeline we're jiving at right now. I personally am hoping for, you know, the latter, but I'm just saying that these gifts are going to be needed. It's not just to heal people in this day. It will be to heal people, but it'll also probably be so that we can communicate, so we can actually, like, you know, get together in a time that may not afford us that capability. So please, if you are someone who's getting your eye on, just know that this is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And if it is hella scary, like I said, just ask your guides, just ask your higher self to slow it down. Don't kick it off completely. And that's, again, why I say don't do the CIA tapes or try to force it open, because what will happen, you might scare the crap out of yourself and then jolt back in and then try to block it because of how freaked out you are. So just let the natural progression of your higher self's challenges come through and pass by you, through you. Take awareness of it, journal it, and know that if you've heard my voice today, that this is a progression. You're not alone, and there will be others that will sympathize with you. Some of us have already had it on before. Some of us have it on right now, and some of you are brand new to this, and it will jolt you out of everything you've ever believed in your life. And I just want to be real with you, because when I hear other people like, oh, it's just like so beautiful and so sweet and nothing happens, and this is, and I'm gonna be honest, if you're someone like myself, a lot freaking happens. So, but we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. All right. So have a good one, guys. Bye for now.